I'm using one of the boards that I primed in a recent video, and this was done with acrylic spray paint, so it has no texture on it really, apart from some of these big thick drops that you might be able to see. And I'm using the Sennelier oil pastels just to map out the drawing from my reference. And I'm just going to put some shape in the side of the hill. And this just helps me when I'm painting, so I don't just have a sort of triangular flat green colour. Just seeing if I've got the reflection pretty accurate. Again, it can change, and I'm rubbing some lines out here with just a piece of tissue in Gamsol. Some cold wax medium. This is Gamlin. You normally use Zest It. I didn't really find that much of a difference when I used Gamlin. And there goes the palette. So a bit of Payne's Grey being dropped in there among the usual colours. So I've mixed up a pale yellow with mixing white and some Naples yellow. I'm just doing the clouds as they hug the silhouette shape of the mountainside, mixing in some cold wax medium and just trying to pick this up in the water as well. The paint's being put on the surface with a nice big flat palette knife, although I change it, and this one's a little triangular one to do some mixing with. So as the sky goes a little bit higher into the painting, I'm adding a bit more ultramarine blue with a very, very slight hint of Payne's Grey. The blue is a little bit saturated, so I'm greying it down with an orangey colour or a yellowy colour. It's not so much a gradiated sky, this one. It has a much brighter section to the left that goes all the way up to the top, and then on the right and the middle of the sky it has more of the sort of blues and the sort of greeny off blue colours. I'm mixing in a little bit of Prussian blue now for the very top of the sky, and it's all going on with a palette knife. Again, this is mixed with cold wax medium, so it's very, very stodgy and has a lot of texture. I'm just picking out bits of the sky. It's kind of cheeky really, it's just excess on the brush, and I'm just putting it into the sea. And I'm using this large flat hogshair bristle brush to just take some peaks down. I don't mind a bit of texture in this sky particularly, but I'm also being very careful to take the excess paint off the brush as I move from this Prussian blue into areas that are not quite that blue. And if I didn't do that, it's highly likely that I would just get a big muddy flat colour. If that happens, it's okay. You know, these things do happen and you can scrape it off and start again. To get these patches of colour to mingle here, I'm using rollers. Now, it might look a little bit flash, but I'm painting with my left hand and my right. I don't know if the camera picks it up here. And that's just so that we can keep our colours separate. Although it only looks like I'm painting with my right. I was doing a cheeky bit of left-handed painting there. And again, last little bit of detail and changes of marks with the flat brush. Sometimes the roller makes a line, horizontal line, you can kind of see it there, but the Hierarchy brush or the big flat brush takes it out. It gives little lines of texture as well. To move on to the green parts or the land part, I'm adding extra earth type colours, Indian yellow, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, a little bit of viridian there, always helps me out. This colour terra verte, I don't know if I pronounced that right, it's very useful, although it has got weak tinting power. I'm just suggesting my darks now into the land section. Just continuing to show my darkest darks. Bit of viridian with this mix of burnt sienna. Just putting some mid-tone values into the hills. A brighter, more saturated green goes in here now, just to give some contrast to the greyed out green at the top and the sort of greyed out burnt sienna at the water's edge. Look, touch of yellow ochre going into it. Just take that saturation down a bit. I'm working out the foliage that's halfway up the hill. It's where the grass is starting to go a little bit autumnal, and there's a lot of it at the water's edge, as you can see, and a lot of it sort of part way up the hill. At this stage, it's probably fair to say it's kind of got a lot of qualities that an underpainting has. You know, it's just paint is laid down, then I'll review it and take a look at it and see what needs to be removed or what else needs to be added on top. Right now though, I'm carving out some lines with a palette knife. There's a lovely little tree line at the water's edge and some quite tall trees on it. So I'm working to, and I'm constantly doing it, so when I make a horizontal line I tend to ruin what I've just done. So I'll keep building this tree line up, showing its reflection, which I think is very attractive. One of the things that appealed to me about the image. And yeah, showing the reflection as it goes down into the water. And there's me having a go at the tree line again. This painting is much to do with repetition. Before I really got going with the water, I put it on an easel and sat down to look at it, vertical easel, and to my horror, the painting flopped off the easel and landed face down, always the way. So I have the same problem with buttered toast, landing face down. And to be really honest with you, the bottom half of the painting didn't come off too well, and it was more or less start from scratch with the bottom half. But I salvaged the sky and the part of the land that's out of the water. Using my finger to just smudge a little bit of paint up, and that's nice. It gives you texture changed from brushes and knife marks and skewer marks. I'm just dabbing in some little neutral greys here to just indicate that there are rocks over there. I'm trying to match them up in the reflection, which is a bit pointless considering that it flopped over and I redid the reflection part. I've left this bit in even though it was all scraped off eventually and redone, but I probably wouldn't have changed a huge amount of this painting had it not had an accident. Taking some thick colour down into the reflection. I started to think that texture in the reflection didn't look quite right, and I must confess that I was in two minds about reducing that. On this slope there are some lovely little foliage notes and a nice little tree that just pokes into the sky nearly at the top of the hill. I'm quite fond of that. Still trying to play about with my reflection there. And now time for the skewer. And if you haven't seen the skewer in action before, there are other things you could use. But this is a kebab skewer, and what I use it for is scrape away paint to reveal some of the dark base coat or underpainting, which I think was just done in lots of acrylic greens and burnt sienna type colours. It's a lovely little effect. It's really fun to do. All I would say is just don't go too mad with it. You can really overdo this, and you don't want to kick the pants out of it. Which I quite often do. If you do overdo this, skewer thing, you can just butter it over with a knife, or just tap it with some with a hog's hair brush, perhaps. If it's awful, you know, these things happen, and all you need to do is scrape it away and repaint. I say all, I mean that might be a little bit heartbreaking. There are some aerials on the top of the hill. I don't know if they come out so well in the video, but I've just scratched those out with a skewer too. And I've done the same thing in the reflection, which I think gives it a nice little characteristic. And yeah, I wasn't too happy with the texture, so I'm using brushes to just flatten that out a little bit. You can see a lot of the paint has gone. No surprise, I've lost my tree reflections again, so they're going in with a palette knife. And I'm trying to get some vertical lines with it down as reflections. Excuse my elbows. And I've mixed up a little bit of a Prussian blue and white mix here to start to do more of the water as it hugs the reflection of the hillside. Now, this is the state of the painting after I dropped it. And basically all I did was scrape everything back and do a repaint. And the repaint was basically the same colours that I've already used. And for the water, I put tissue paper and cold wax medium into the paint and roll it over the tissue paper to reveal the blue. And then I just worked some colours down, much as you'd seen me do before. But it was a little bit heartbreaking. But I knew that I just had to carry on. I dropped the painting last thing on Friday, and with the weekend looming, I knew it would haunt me, so I just stayed in the studio and finished it, and neglected to get the filming setup organised. But there you have it, and please forgive me for that hiccup at the end, and I hope you enjoy it.